Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 83 of College Football Throwdown. I'm your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined, as always, by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hello, college football fans and Husker fans.
Hello, hello, hello. So
Yes.
for those who are listening to the first time, this is a college football podcast by college football fans for college football fans. A father-son duo getting together to talk about college football and our favorite team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, just like we did when I was growing up.
Absolutely.
All right. And so we are going to be here today to discuss Nebraska's game against Purdue and the results of that game, as well as the big games of Week 10 and the upcoming showdowns of Week 11, of which there are many. What are you doing over there?
Sorry, go ahead. Am I making noise?
Yes, Mr. Crackle over there.
Sorry.
Okay. And of course, we'll also talk about the college football rankings, which were released, the playoff rankings, and some coaching carousel stuff. There's a lot to go into this week.
Sounds good.
All right. But before we get into all that, we've got our traditional beer cracking, and I've got that here. I've got a Blue Moon Belgian White today.
No. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I've had those before.
Yep. These are leftovers from the Halloween party we had this weekend, actually. So, Here it goes. Oh.
So what was your best new decoration this year?
Well, this one was Harry Potter themed.
Okay.
So, like, our friend CJ attached little candles to the ceiling, like floating. They're little paper candles, but
yes.
Those were pretty cool. And there was a whole setup for, like, the Great Hall in our kitchen and things like that. So, yeah. And then, well, and I guess the biggest thing is then there were Dementors that were made out of, like, wire frames with black cloth over top. So you can get a picture with them.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. Now, talking about this Purdue game, were you able to watch the whole thing, or were you working part of it?
I was working part of it, and so I did not get to see the infamous final drive where the drive where they scored and took the lead. The last I knew, we had just scored to take the lead, 28 24 or whatever, and then I was called away because we had an equipment problem, as I was still helping to try to harvest beets in northern Minnesota.
There you go. Well, you got to try your best, right? That's what counts.
That's right.
So we gave our predictions on last week's podcast. I predicted Nebraska victory, being optimistic with a high-scoring game, thinking that our defense would struggle to stop them, of 42-38. Whereas you predicted a Purdue victory of 42-28. And the good news is that it wasn't that bad of a loss. The final score was 31-27. And as you mentioned, we scored a touchdown. We were up by 3 with like 5 minutes left to go in the game. So we were in the position to win if our defense could have gotten a stop there. But of course, that's not how it played out.
Right.
And I think my takeaway from this game is that we were able to get momentum on all three sides of the ball: offense, defense, and special teams. But the problem at different points of the game. But the problem was that the other parts of the team were never able to capitalize on the other part of our team's success. Like early on, the defense was playing well. Our scheme was working against them. And we were stopping them. They weren't getting anything going on the run,
interception.
We were winning the field position battle for sure. We were starting in great field position, but then the offense wasn't able to capitalize. The special teams got 2 blocked punts, but we weren't able to capitalize as hard on those as we were hoping for, or on the interception, where our guy ran it back to the 2-yard line, and we still couldn't score and had to couldn't get a touchdown, had to settle for a field goal. And then later on in the game, Adrian got some stuff going, started to run the ball more, and was having success with that. And so then the offense was starting to click. But then when we needed our defense to, hang in there and just stop them for one drive, they couldn't do it. So that's what it felt like to me. What was your impression?
Well, I would agree with you, except that I would even be more critical of early in the game. I mean, frankly, with all the great field position and certainly the interception opportunity that you were describing down to the 2, I mean, we should have easily been winning this game by 14 to 21 points, depending on your argument, maybe 17, something like that. But we should have gone into halftime winning that football game comfortably, and we did not. And I think based on our history this season, and for whatever reason, whether you want to say it's because we're young, it's because we lack the kind of quality leadership that we need, which are all true statements, or it's just simply that our coaches aren't yet mature enough as a group yet to be able to make adjustments. But we have historically all season not had much success or change in our result from the first half to the second half. There's not a lot of adjustment that goes on that leads to success and progress, if you will, as a team.
Now to counter what you just said there, you'll recall, so in the first quarter, defense played pretty well. Then in the second quarter, near the end of the half, they started getting some stuff going. They had like a big long drive.
Yes. They had 2 of them. They had 2 very productive drives late in the first half.
Yes, they did. And then they were, I forget if they tied the game or if they got in the lead going into halftime. Because
I believe they had a lead just a little bit.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
14-13.
But then we came out in the second half and we stopped them several drives in a row, and the commentators were going on about how we had changed up our formations and that was confusing them. So there's an example where we made some adjustments and it was working, but like I said, the offense was really struggling, couldn't capitalize there. And then once the offense did finally get going in the fourth quarter, our defense was tired from being out there so long because they were definitely winning the time of possession battle. And they had started to figure out the holes in our adjustments and were going to the same passes over and over again. And so it didn't, we couldn't capitalize when we had the opportunity to, and that's my kind of like you said, that's my big thing. We needed to capitalize on those opportunities because they made more mistakes than us. They were down -1 in terms of turnovers, and they had 10 penalties in the game.
Right. I mean, that's a game we should win. It's just flat out. There's no excuses other than just people making stupid mistakes, dumb mistakes, and the fact that our team cannot seem to get out of its own way. And like you said, when 1 or 2 of the 3 phases of the team are doing well, then the other one has to shit on the other 2 by just making bonehead decisions, mistakes, missed tackles. Oh my God, the tackling in this game was just I mean, it's like I guess our guys have never practiced tackling. Yeah. Apparently, they haven't. And that's the kind of shit that, we spent a lot of time last week and in many recent weeks talking about fundamentals. And at this point, if I'm Scott Frost during this off week, I damn well hope that he is devoting a considerable amount of time, if not all his time, to just blocking, tackling, running basic things, handoffs, ball security. I mean, that's all I would do. I wouldn't even worry about game planning or anything else. I would just preach to the entire team and make sure that my offensive or my practice schedule is just focused exclusively on skills of playing the game of football, because it appears that we're a team that does not know how to play the game of football. The basics. Doesn't know how to separate from blocks. So you damn well better be learning how to use your hands, learning how to, when you have multiple moves as a defensive lineman, how to set an offensive lineman up one over another. But the bottom line is that our linemen, our defensive linemen and linebackers, when they blitz, no matter who it is, they always the other team is waiting for. that no one ever gets through unblocked.
Now
There's
that's not
we're not, no surprise, no confusion. We're not doing any of that shit.
Now, to counter you once again, if you look at the stats, they had 1 sack on us. We had 3 on them. So we did get there sometimes. And one thing I noticed was that there were several plays where our guys were in the right position, but then they either dove for the guy and missed, or just snagged his leg but couldn't hold
But
on,
but
or
but
they juked him. They juked our guy,
right.
And then got another 10 yards
Well,
after
but
that.
here's the thing, Alex. You have to do it. I mean, when you get that opportunity, you have to bring it home.
I know.
You have to
I know.
finish the deal. And so just almost there, and could have gone it, but then he juked me. All these kinds of statements. I don't want to hear it. It's all bullshit. Okay, if you're being taught right, you know how to attack and aggressively pursue a quarterback and zone in on them and tackle him. Okay, you know what? It's very hard to juke your stomach. You can juke hips, you can slide, you can shift your weight and that sort of stuff. But if a player is doing if they got proper tackling technique and they're coming in and they're focused, okay, on the person they're going to tackle, then unless that guy can juke their stomach, and we haven't played a quarterback who's capable of that, then we should be tackling. It's that simple. That's total bullshit. And the whole idea of, oh, we got three quarterback sacks or tackles for loss or good or whatever, that doesn't mean anything when you're having to bring corner blitzes and other very extremely risky choices, because your basic defensive linemen, your basic 3 defensive linemen plus all the 4 linebackers who you have to choose from, whether we're bringing 1 or 2, or whatever the scenario is, none of them are coming through. None of them are surprising anybody. None of them are coming through free, okay, or almost free, okay. And to me, when you're blitzing as much as Nebraska is, that should be happening from time to time. And the problem is that if it's not, then why are you wasting your time blitzing? You'd be better off putting everybody back in coverage and daring the guy to throw it. And then if he runs it, have a spy on him so that he's tackled somewhere close to the line of scrimmage. Instead, we either go all in, blitzing off the corners and crazy shit like that, which is always highly risky, or we're backing off and not doing a damn thing. So we need the ability to get off a block, and that's fundamental. It's basic. It's football 101, and for whatever reason, our players don't seem to know how to do it.
Right.
So
yes, and I texted you because I wasn't sure if you were watching the game. I think it was on that second drive in the second quarter where they were just marching down the field on us, and we had so many missed tackles.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, you're going to tear your hair out when you watch this."
Oh,
So
I know.
Oh no, it was rough.
It's true. It is absolutely accurate and true. And so, Nebraska, we talked a little bit of this before we went on with the podcast, and so it's maybe worth repeating for our listeners and stuff, is just that, going into this season, there were very few people in Nebraska that were calling for Nebraska to be the Big Ten West champions. The majority of those kinds of votes and things of that nature and conversation about Nebraska winning the Big Ten West, most of us looked at it and said, well, if everything possible fell right, then yeah, that might happen. But so we were excited that people were excited about us, but most Nebraska fans recognize that it would take a perfect season, both in terms of injuries, and so no lost games to injury for any of our key players, and then we would need a few breaks. But I think equally we could not have predicted the kind of catastrophic fall we would have on offense, where our offense went from the second half of last season, where it seemed like it was prolific against everybody we played, including the best teams in the league, like Ohio State and even Iowa at the end of the year, where we looked demonstratively effective. I mean, like we were able to really run with our fast tempo. We were able to get running yards against just about everybody. I mean, all that stuff was working. This year, none of it.
Right.
It's just not happening. And our offensive coaches and our offensive quarterback, not even a fraction of what they looked like the year before.
Right. Well, I was going to say, since it's so like zone read heavy, it puts a lot of burden on the quarterback, and Adrian did a good job getting into that role and getting confident last season, despite the losses that we had.
Right.
And I don't know with this game, the Purdue game, whether it was his injuries still bothering him or just his confidence being shot from earlier on, or not getting enough reps in practice, to get back in shape, or whatever it was. But Adrian is a big part of the reason we lost this game. He made so many bad decisions, making the wrong reads, missing open receivers or taking too long to get to them, and then overthrowing receivers that were open. So like, once again, we can have critiques about the system, but there were a number of plays here where the system was working and we just didn't execute. The players didn't execute properly, or mistiming the handoffs, things like that. So, and I gotta believe that Vedral is still pretty badly hurt, because I was pretty sure that they were going to sub him in at some point, because I thought that Adrian needed to sit down and get his head together at some point, and they never took him out. So
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I don't understand the lack of confidence, even if it's not Vedral. I think putting McCaffrey out there because of his wheels might have been a little bit of a change-up that would have been worthwhile for us to do sometime in that second half.
Right.
And we just never really got anything going.
Right.
Never.
And you could tell that, like I said, in the fourth quarter, we started getting some stuff going, and Adrian had that nice run where QB ran it in for the touchdown, dived to get it, and he had a nice big fist pump, and you could tell that he really,
he was happy.
He was happy. He knew that this was important, that he earned that. So once again, at the end of the game, we started to get some stuff together. Adrian seemed to be getting into more of a groove, but unfortunately it was too little too late by that point. And I'm frustrated with the defense, not being able to stop them at the end, but at the same time, it's like they stopped them a lot earlier in the game, and the offense couldn't convert, or even when they were in great field position, we got field goals instead of touchdowns. If those two field goals, which were very gettable, were touchdowns instead, we win the game if everything else plays out the same, right? So
I totally agree.
So, there's only so mad I can be at the defense when the offense is missing opportunities like that.
I know, but I'm mad at the defense primarily because I think that they're the team that has the maturity in terms of the number of seniors that are starting or playing significant minutes. And defense is always something that usually is ahead of offense until late in the season or whatever, because of repetitions. And so throughout these recent games, I would have expected our defense to rise to the occasion and really be able to get a little bit better handle on these teams, especially the kind of teams that are borderline in terms of really being considered good, right? These are a bunch of teams that are going to end up being right around 500 or less.
Yeah.
And yet, even against these teams, we were incapable of doing the basic things we need to do as a defense. I mean, it was a joke. There was one play, this was in the first half. It was one of those drives that they actually moved the football and scored some points against us. But, I mean, their quarterback didn't even ultimately, I think, still had to throw it away. But he was in the pocket for almost 8.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Untouched.
I remember that one.
Untouched for 8.5 seconds. And he did throw it out of bounds, and I don't think he got the ball advanced anywhere. But the point is you can't have a quarterback giving or taking 7.5 plus minutes. That's just too many.
Right. Yep.
Or 7.5 seconds, not minutes. I meant 7.5 seconds.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully not minutes. And two other little beats that are worth mentioning, and then we'll move on. But it's worth mentioning that
Yeah.
when you gave your prediction about your score, where you thought they would score 42 points on us, that was with your prediction that Rondale Moore would be playing. And it turned out he wasn't, which is obviously good for us, them not having their best rusher in the game.
Right, and wide receiver, yeah.
Right, but that obviously we still struggled even with that. And then at the very end of the game, their second team quarterback who had been playing got hurt in the previous series, and so then the third string quarterback comes out there, and I thought, okay, well, I know we've been struggling defensively, but the third string guy's out there, if he is not playing great, we should be able to capitalize on this, stop him, win the game. But he drove it down just the same as the last guy had done. So it didn't make a difference.
Yep. And that's ridiculous, right? I mean, that has to be ridiculous. Yeah. You can't let a third team quarterback do that to you.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So thankfully we do have a bye week. So once again, we kind of get a week to lick our wounds and prepare for the upcoming Wisconsin game, which is obviously going to be a very difficult game for our team.
Yes.
And now we're at a point where we're 4-5 in the season, and realistically, being realistic, our best bet now is to get to 5 wins and hope that there are enough 5-win teams out there that a bowl game will pick us up, because we've got Wisconsin, Maryland, and then Iowa. And Wisconsin and Iowa are both looking beyond our level if we can't even beat the likes of Purdue and Indiana. So.
Yep, I agree. It's going to be very tough. And I kind of think my perception is that Wisconsin is really out of our league. And particularly with regard to the matchup, their strengths, our weaknesses, et cetera, et cetera. So I expect that when we get to it, that Wisconsin game is going to be kind of brutal and just one we have to get through. And I'm afraid our players are going to play like that, which always makes it worse. But then we have 2 games there at the end of the season that hopefully are winnable. That we could go out to Maryland, find a way to get a victory there. And if we get that, then we're going to go into that
Iowa game.
Iowa game, basically sitting at 5 wins and 6 losses. And we need that 6th win to become bowl eligible, and maybe the combination of that, inspired, by whatever Scott, conveys to the team, that's enough. Because the Iowa team, I think, is more vulnerable, more capable of getting beaten by a team like Nebraska than the Wisconsin team. I think the Wisconsin team, because of their All-American running back and their success defensively and among the offensive line, they're going to beat us even with their B- kind of play. Whereas I think a B- performance from Iowa will open the door for Nebraska.
Right.
So that's what I can only hope that's what happens.
I would agree. That's the hope at this point.
Yep.
So moving on from that, there were some other games in Week 10. It was a little bit of a quieter week overall. But the big game in the SEC was Georgia-Florida. And on the last podcast, you predicted that Florida would win 35-21, whereas I predicted a 35-31 victory for Georgia. And the final score ended up being 24-17 in favor of Georgia. So I won that particular exchange, which obviously helped Georgia out. There were some other games that were kind of close, but not particularly significant. Like Notre Dame played against Virginia Tech and won 21-20. So they dodged a bullet there. And then of significance is that Miami beat Florida State 27-10. And I'm sure it was already on its way to happening, but that seemed to be the kind of the nail in the coffin. And just a few days later, Willie Taggart was announced that he was fired from Florida State after being there for about a year and a half, with like a $20 million buyout paid for by the donors or something like that.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, on the good side, a lot of people would look at that and say, hey, that's an athletic director that recognizes that, hey, whatever the circumstances were, whether I did it or I did it based on a really strong recommendation from somebody else or whatever. This is clearly not working out. We got to go in a different direction, and I want it to happen now.
Yeah, clearly. And I don't know enough about the situation to really weigh in one way or the other with much authority. I will say that generally I'm in the camp of giving coaches at least 3 years to kind of get their system in place, and get some of their players in, that kind of thing. So this does seem a little bit knee-jerky to me. But we'll see, as other coaches become available, and other positions become open, who they're able to get. Because if they're willing to throw around that kind of money to get Willie out of there, then you got to believe that they're willing to pay some big bucks to get a big coach to come in. That's what they're aiming for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And on that subject, it was also, and probably also a timing working out here. PJ Fleck at Minnesota announced that he had extended his contract like 2026 with them, kind of taking him off the market for anybody who may be looking to nab him after his success this year there at Minnesota. So
yes, and that is a great move by their AD to do that, because I think a lot of people would be coming to call, and frankly, because of the nature of Coach Fleck, I think there's kind of an ongoing concern about him, being ready to jump to the greener pasture as soon as that opportunity presents itself. That just made the structure a little more friendly to the school, so that if somebody really wanted to do it, they're going to have to pay through the teeth to do it.
Is that did he jump ship to get to Minnesota, or does he have a reputation for that?
Not necessarily. I mean, he came from Eastern Michigan, I believe it was. So it was a MAC school, much like your alma mater, right? And so the idea of a successful MAC coach advancing to a Big Ten coaching opportunity is nothing new. A lot of coaches that are in the Big Ten now, had that as their survival.
Right.
So that would probably be the only limiting factor.
There you go. And speaking of Minnesota, they've kind of been a topic of conversation because the first college football playoff rankings were released this past Tuesday. And the top 4 is quite a bit different from what the AP poll currently has. I think they had LSU number 1, Alabama number 2. But in their case, the college football playoff has Ohio State 1, LSU 2, Alabama 3, Penn State 4, Clemson 5. Then with Minnesota all the way down at rank 17, even though they're currently undefeated.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, had you not looked at the rankings?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. Well, and I actually think looking at their schedule, Minnesota has really not beaten anybody of real note.
No.
Well,
thus this week is so
exactly. Huge. I think this was almost kind of a message from the playoff committee saying, prove it on the field this week with your big game against Penn State. And if they were to win, I bet you they would jump up many placings.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. That's what would happen. Because if they could do that, then the very real possibility of them getting to, 12-0 and winning the West and going to the Big Ten championship game undefeated, it would be a real thing. And then even if they lost that game and ended up 12-1 with Ohio State winning, there's no harm in losing Ohio State, right? So then it might very well be that Minnesota would put themselves in a position to be in the top 4 and still get one of the 4 spots if they were actually able to go 12-0 and play in a good game in that championship against Ohio State. I don't think they're gonna. I think they're losing this weekend. So
yeah. Well, actually, and let me pull up their schedule. I think they may play Ohio State in the regular season.
No, they don't. I don't think so.
I'm pulling it up.
They do play Minnesota. They do play Wisconsin. Yes. Last game of the year. They have 3 games left.
You're right. Well,
Or,
you're right. Yeah, but they do. Yeah, they have a tough schedule because they've got Penn State into Iowa, into Northwestern, into Wisconsin. Wisconsin's their
there you
last
go.
game.
There you go. So they got 4 games left, not 3. Okay. So, yep. That's it. And so, I could see them now that they're at this pinnacle spot in their season. I could see them losing to Penn State. And then the following week they play, did you say Iowa?
No. Or yes, I think it was Iowa, then Northwestern, then Wisconsin.
Northwestern. So they'll beat Northwestern, but that's the only gimme of the last 4.
Yep. So this is, like you said, this is their time to really prove themselves. They got their tough games here at the end.
Oh, exactly. And if they won those 4 games, are you kidding me? Then they have every right to, claim not only the Big Ten West, but to be right there in the thick of the college football playoff discussion.
Yep.
With that kind of resume behind them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also one that's of course getting talked about is the fact that Penn State is 4 over Clemson, which is interesting. But I saw actually it was Paul Feinbaum on ESPN saying that he thinks Clemson's the most dangerous team in the country right now, and that Dabo was ringing in the champagne when he saw that because it's going to make his team driven to prove everybody wrong, and they do better when they're the underdog and not on top, etc., etc.
I would agree that having your team kind of waiting in the shadows and underneath because they're a little disrespected is a great place. As a coach, great place to have your players, be on a national, stage like that when you know that you have the talent. It's irrelevant if you're in Nebraska, for example, and you're struggling identity-wise and confidence-wise to even believe you have the skill. That means all that other outside talk is not worth all that much. But when you know you have the talent and you've been underachieving, so to speak, a little bit, then that's the kind of thing that can help focus your team.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Going through the rest of the rankings in the top 10, we've got Georgia at 6. After that win over Florida. Oregon at 7. Utah at 8. Oklahoma at 9. And then Florida at 10. So not a
great... Who was 6?
Georgia.
And then after that?
Okay. 6 Georgia. 7 Oregon.
Okay.
8 Utah, 9 Oklahoma, 10 Florida.
Got it.
Which that's a rough look, I would say, for the Big 12, with Oklahoma being all the way down at 9th. Their best team, after that loss, K-State. So even if they went out the rest of the way and win the Big 12 championship, it'll depend on what the other conference champions look like and how many undefeated teams there are.
Obviously, Oregon and Utah are headed for a clash,
Mm-hmm.
And in the Big Ten, we're relying on Ohio State to win out and do their thing. So that's important to the Big Ten, and the rest of them are, kind of fighting it out. But yeah, I would agree with you that basically Oklahoma's in a little bit of a rough spot, and because of the Big 12, and I think Pac-12 is still pretty borderline too.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that really these CFP rankings as of right now in week 10 don't mean anything, because the only ones that matter are the ones at the end of the season.
Yes.
Really, but it is worth noting that there are currently 2 SEC teams and then 2 Big Ten teams in the top 10, in the top 4 rather. So that goes to show, and with Ohio State at number 1, so that goes to show that the committee is taking into account the general strength of schedule of the Big Ten, and the fact that there are a lot of, even if they're not a ton of great teams, there's a lot of good teams in general to play through and fight through.
I would agree. But the challenge though is that they punish you so much for losses, and so when you have that tougher schedule because you have a more competitive conference, you still got to win. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. You got to win those games, even though they're tough. You got to win them.
Yep. Very true. And Ohio State obviously has two big challenges still left for them with Penn State and then the Michigan at the very end of the season. So they could very well still trip up.
I know, and that's got to concern the folks at the Big Ten, conference. So,
right,
we'll see.
I guess the worst case would be like if Minnesota beat Penn State and then like Ohio State lost to Penn State or something, and so then all the teams had at least one loss.
Yep, I would agree, and we can't afford that as a conference, and we sure as hell can't afford it from a national perspective. See, am I going back onto my soapbox and about about the relevance of making college football a national sport? Because if that scenario, which could very easily play out because of injuries and just the accumulation of the physicality of our league in the Big Ten, that you find yourself again with no one in the Big Ten able to get through it without getting scathed, if you will, and then the SEC, because they play that one less conference game, finding themselves with two or three teams that have the record, right? Even though they may have lost one game in conference, they still have the remainder of the resume that makes it easier for the committee to pick them.
Right.
Whereas the Big Ten tends not to get that.
Though I will say, with how this year's played out, is that since both the Pac-12 and the Big 12 all have teams with at least one loss as well. So if it came to a scenario where, say, there were two SEC teams in, Clemson,
right,
and then one spot left, and you have a one-loss team from each the Big 10, the Pac-12 and the Big 12, I would anticipate, unless that loss in the Big 10 was really ugly, I think the Big 10 team gets in there.
I totally agree.
Yeah, but let's hope that scenario doesn't play out.
Yeah.
All right. And so, and we teased it earlier, but as many college football fans will know, this weekend has some big games. The biggest one, of course, being the titanic matchup in the SEC of LSU versus Alabama.
Yes.
It is.
And it pisses me off that LSU got ranked ahead of Alabama. Oh, let's see. Poor Alabama needs a little motivation. So let's shove the upstart LSU Tigers into a position where they're ranked above Alabama. That's just so convenient for Alabama to get the advantage of coming in as the quote underdog in this matchup. That just pisses me off, with all of Alabama stuff and all the accolades they get the rest of the time. Somehow magically, they have this first ranking, and those sons of bitches get the benefit of getting voted third, which is a huge advantage going into a game like that and being in the underdog. He has their attention.
Right.
It's just little stuff like that, and it always seems to fall Alabama's way, and it frustrates the hell out of me.
But in terms of the AP ranking, LSU has been above Alabama for the past couple weeks. That isn't a new thing.
It's not a new thing, but it's just now as this game approaches and plays out, that's the kind of shit that it seems like it always falls the way that a coach would want it to fall for Nick Saban. I mean, because I'm telling you, LSU looks like they're really good, but they haven't played Alabama. You know what? Alabama's still the goddamn king. Keep them ahead of them. Understand that until they actually do it, it means nothing. Okay? And so putting LSU up there where they're now the supposed, favorite is bullshit, because they needed the underdog moniker and the, we don't have any respect type of moniker to help them. It's like a fighter. It's like two heavyweight fighters. You do not want to be the favorite in that situation. You want to be the underdog so that you can come in and have the chip on your shoulder of being the second best. And I want to prove that I'm the best. That's huge. That's huge from a mentality and a preparation and just going in with the right attitude. And God darn it, Alabama finds themselves on the best side of that again. And this happens so many times. Drives me crazy.
I hear you there. I think you're making out to be more of a conspiracy than it actually is.
Well, it's
And
not such. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. I'm just saying it's just frustrating that it always seems to play out this way. And why these people who do this, whether it's a committee or it's the goddamn voters, don't recognize that. You know what? Until somebody actually beats Alabama, no one's better than them in the SEC. No one. They should just that should be a freaking standard, so that gives that underdog the best chance to come in and surprise Alabama. It's so damn easy. The only thing you can count on with Alabama is that they do not deliver an A performance. We need Alabama to sleepwalk. We need Alabama to come in overconfident. And yet they seem to play it out so that Alabama is not going to ever do that, because they're always given the benefit of being the underdog at just the right time, so that when they need to rise to the occasion, they can. Right. And that just is bullshit.
Well, let me throw in two factors here for you. Even if it was like the AP ranking had it where LSU was 1, Alabama was 2, Alabama is playing at home in this game, so that gives them an advantage right there.
Yes, it does.
But then going against them is the fact that it's still uncertain whether Tua will be playing at quarterback. I believe it's going to be a game-time decision for Nick Saban there. So that more so, I think, than any sort of mental edge from being the underdog or not being the underdog, etc. That's the most important feature to this game. If Tua's not playing, then obviously that gives LSU something to hold on to.
Well, it gives them hope if they were. I'm going to sound like a broken record. If they were the underdog, I'm telling you right now, Alabama's defense is going to play like they are 11 NFL freaking all pros. Okay, everything about that, they're going to play like their hair's on. I will be shocked if that doesn't happen. I will be shocked, and I'm going to tell you, as somebody who's tried to prepare a team on more than one occasion as a coach. At the high school level, granted, not even remotely close to this level, but when you're trying to prepare a team and you know that you're playing against a premier team, a team that may very well be better athletes than you, then you want every advantage you can, especially on the psychology side of things. And I'm telling you, what's transpiring here plays out very heavily in favor of Alabama. And you add into that the fact that it's Alabama at home, and I'm here to tell you they're going to prove that they're out to prove it, and it's going to be really hard for LSU to win with all the stuff they're going to have to overcome. Right. It's back to the fighter analogy. You don't beat a fighter, a champion. You don't beat a champion without knocking them out, right? You can't expect to win the points battle against the champion in the ring, by winning X number of rounds or whatever, because they're just not going to do that. The people involved are not going to do that. The players involved, etc., are not going to do that. You got to knock him out. He's the champion. You got to knock him out, and this makes it very hard for LSU to do that. I would love for LSU to knock him out, but it ain't going to happen.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
There was something I was going to mention off of what you were saying there, but I've forgotten it now.
I'm sorry because I rattled too long.
No, it's okay.
Well, you get my point. It's just frustrating as a fan of the sport who wishes.
Oh, I remember
back
now.
To the old
days. It's because it's that good old ambiguity of the eye test. I think that's what it is that the voters are seeing both teams playing and seeing Alabama having some injuries and struggling a little bit more than usual, whereas LSU has played some teams of real worth, like they beat Florida and everything,
and Auburn,
and looked right in Auburn and looked good doing it. I think that's the difference as to why they're ranked higher.
Right, but they haven't played Alabama the program, and with the depth and the pride and all the other things that Alabama always has going for it. And that's the thing it's like teams when they played Nebraska back in the 90s. I mean, we played some good teams during that era who were very talented. We played a Colorado team, in 94 and 95 both of those years, that was loaded, and I mean loaded with NFL talent. Frankly, they probably had as much or more than we did. They probably should have beaten us, but the mystique and the gravitas, if you will, of the Nebraska program at that time, and the expectation of victory that team and that leadership of that team had, was, we are Nebraska, we're going to win. So we would go out there and play a team that was potentially superior to us in talent, and we'd make them look bad. I mean, we were beating them 24-0 at halftime or whatever in that Colorado-Nebraska game in '95, and we were playing with our backup quarterback who had a collapsed lung,
Right.
and we still crushed him.
Right.
Well, how do you do that? This is just exact same scenario we're talking about here. Backup quarterback is a possible starter at Alabama, and yet Alabama at home, and Alabama could I expect, will come out and play an absolute A+ type of game, because they have all the mental things at their disposal.
Yep, that could very well be. That's for sure. You just reminded me, talking about some Nebraska history. It's worth mentioning that this week, I believe, was the official 150th anniversary of college football, like of the first game. So ESPN's been publishing all these articles and videos in celebration of it. And one of their articles was the top 150 college football games of all time. And at number 1, there was the Nebraska-Oklahoma game from 1971, the game of the century. And then at number 2 was the 1984 game between Nebraska and Miami, where Miami won off of the missed 2-point conversion.
Right.
Yes. So number 1 and number 2 on the list.
Both involved Nebraska. That's right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, and that's part of what it is that keeps Nebraska fans and keeps Nebraska relevant. After two decades of really not being relevant, is we remain relevant because those in the sport remember what Nebraska was and meant to the sport for all those many decades, and the fact that the fans haven't given up and continue to provide loyalty and support and everything like that. Everybody's desperate to see Nebraska be successful again, and the problem is everybody but the players and the coaches seem to be ready to rise to that, and so we're just waiting for that to happen. And I believe we have the right guy in Scott Frost to do that. He's a great leader. He's a great leader of young men. He's a great leader of coaches. But I think he's got some serious flaws in his system right now that he needs to have the openness to consider changes, whether that be in both his coaching staff as well as his overall approach. Given that he's now a member of the Big Ten coaching fraternity, he's no longer in the Pac-12 or out there in the AAC. He's in big boy football with some big physical teams and great coaches every week in and week out, and that's what's different about the Big Ten. Because we are getting exposed by our enormous weaknesses that we cannot cover up.
Yep, very true. And that just gave me a thought, maybe something fun we can do for Christmas when I'll be back in town there in Michigan. Because I don't think I've never actually watched the 71 game in full. So maybe we could make that a Christmas event.
I could do that. Yes, I'd like that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that
would be awesome.
That would be fun.
We could do a back-to-back. We do 71 and then we do 95 or 1996 Fiesta Bowl, so we could watch those two back-to-back.
There we go.
That'd be fun.
Bask in the glow there.
That's right.
And then we mentioned it earlier, but another big game of both nationally and in the Big Ten is Penn State playing against Minnesota, and it's at Minnesota, and you can bet your bottom dollar that stadium is going to be rocking.
Oh, yeah.
And the fans are going to be really into this game because, like we said, this is Minnesota's real chance to prove themselves if they're legit or not.
That's correct. And I mean, I have to do nothing but tip my hat and say I'm impressed by what Minnesota's been able to do, and I love it because they have an identity, they know what they do and do well, and they've found a way to make that happen. But if you really look and scrutinize closely their schedule, they really haven't played that many good teams. And frankly, Nebraska, I thought, was going to be the first legitimate test for them, but we were not. We were illegitimate against them. I mean, it wasn't even a contest. They kicked our ass. And I don't think it was necessarily so much that they were spectacular or profound, although they were very well coached. They had a very good scheme. They had identified things that were weaknesses. Now they're playing against a team that is flat out better than them. Penn State has better athletes virtually across the board to Minnesota, across the board. Maybe there's one position, or two out of 22 where Minnesota might be equitable or have a slight advantage over Penn State. So with that kind of disparity in talent, I think it finally comes crashing down on Minnesota. But they do have home field and motivation and momentum on their side. So if a couple of good things happen and Penn State pisses down their leg just a little bit, then it's going to be interesting. But if Penn State comes in and plays poised and to their level of talent, Penn State wins this game by 14 points.
By 14 points. Well, here's another factor to consider. I just looked it up. Minnesota's last game was against Maryland, which was on October 26th. So they had a bye week last week, meaning they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this Penn State team.
Right.
So that is also worth considering.
That is worth considering. And that might be part of what allows them to, overcome, overcome the disparity in talent.
Although
and that's the key. It's
looking back now at Penn State, they also played their last game on the 26th. They've also had a week to prepare.
2 weeks.
2 weeks to prepare. Good. So I guess it evens out.
Yep. Well, it's all about who's healthy. But if Penn State is reasonably healthy and Minnesota is reasonably healthy, then I pick Penn State all day long, even though it's at Minnesota.
All right. Well, what is your score prediction? You said by 14 points for Penn State, right?
Now I got to make that match up. Okay, I'm going to say that it's going to be, what would that be? 35-21.
35-21.
Right?
Yep, that would be 14 points. I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb here. I'm going to say that with this momentum and the motivation that Fleck is going to be able to inspire his players with being 17th in the CFP rankings, talk about the underdog mentality that we were talking about earlier. I'm going to say that they're going to find a way to claw their way in there and manage to pull out some crazy stuff in the fourth quarter to win. So I'm going to say that Minnesota beats Penn State, and I'm going to say that it's, let's say, 31 Minnesota, 28 Penn State.
Okay, so you're picking Minnesota victory. Good.
Yep. All right. And then in terms of LSU, Alabama, obviously you think Bama's got it.
I do, but because of all the circumstances, that just drive me nuts. Now, literally, if they were not the underdog in this situation, I would have predicted that maybe Alabama comes out, being the laissez-faire, typical, here comes another game type of mentality, rather than the hair on fire one that I believe they're going to have. So that's going to end up being the difference in the game. But I agree it will be close.
All right.
So now you're asking me for the specific, without knowing whether Tua's playing or not, it's really hard.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm gonna go ahead and also predict the underdog here, I guess, and I'll predict, or I guess they're the overdog, whatever. I'll predict LSU, even though Alabama's at home, presuming that Tua is not playing. I'm gonna say that in that scenario, LSU is able to pull it out in a battle of the defenses. So let's say it's 24 LSU, 21 Alabama.
That sounds good.
Yep. And if Tua does play, I think Alabama wins. That'll be my prediction.
Okay. All right. And did they say anything about it's a game time decision?
Game time decision. Right? Yep.
Game time decision. So we won't know until, that comes up this Saturday.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I think I'm going to predict he plays, just so you know.
All right.
That would be my side commentary prediction.
All right. And what's your score then?
God. I didn't. I already. I.
No, you did not say anything.
I thought I did. Um. Shoot. I'm gonna say Alabama. I'm gonna say Alabama 28 and LSU 21.
All right, another close game. That is one I do want to watch. That'll be a good one to watch.
Yeah.
And then two other quick games to talk about, and then we'll wrap this up. Another big one in the Big Ten: Wisconsin versus Iowa, with Wisconsin at home. Kind of a chance to test out what you were saying about you thinking that Wisconsin's the better team for Nebraska to play against, or the tougher team rather, versus Iowa being a little bit more exploitable. So we'll kind of see that in action.
Right. And this is at Camp Randall at Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to predict a Wisconsin victory, and I'm going to say it's pretty comfortable. So it's going to be at least 10 points, and quite possibly I'm underestimating. It should be like 12 or 14. So I'm going to say 38-28 Wisconsin, but it could easily be 38 to in fact, I'm going to change that. I'm going to say it's going to be 35-21. 35 Wisconsin, 21 Iowa.
All right.
And I think it could be even worse than that.
Fair enough. I'm going to go ahead and also predict Wisconsin. I do think that they're the better team. And I'm going to say, let's say 42 Wisconsin and 24 Iowa. I'm going to say that their running game really gets going in this game. And then lastly, we've got Kansas State, the great upsetter from beating Oklahoma. Now they're playing against Texas. It's at home for Texas, but Kansas State is the higher ranked team.
Right.
So I guess technically they're the favorite, but of course traditionally we would think of Texas as being the favorite. So what's your impression of that game?
Well, my impression is Kansas State team is playing really well, and their new coach has done a fabulous job, and obviously knows again how to teach fundamental basic football and get the most out of his talent. Now, whether or not he can ever translate that to get himself into that next level good is a big question. But I think that since it is at home, and Texas, I believe, has the better talent, and as far as I know, Texas's quarterback and their wide receiver talent, none of those guys are big time missing, as far as I know. So with that kind of a injury report, for lack of a better term, I'm going to go with Texas as the victory here. But it won't be by a blowout or anything. Kansas State will absolutely keep it close. It's going to be 3 points, so it's going to be like 31-28.
All right. So you think Kansas State is going to win?
No, I think Texas wins.
Okay.
31-28.
Texas wins. 31-28. Got it. All right. I'll go ahead and say that K-State does it and that they beat another perennial power in the Big 12. But it'll be close for sure. So let's go ahead and say 28. Tell you what, I'll just reverse that score. I'll say 31 K-State, 28 Texas.
Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah, it should be really interesting, but I just think Texas at home is going to be the difference.
Yep. Well, because that Oklahoma game was at K-State, so that is worth noting.
Exactly.
Yep, that's true.
Exactly.
All right. Yep. Well, it's an exciting week for college football, even without a Nebraska game.
It is.
Lots of cool implications, and now we can start in future podcasts. We'll get more into the nuances of the playoff discussion as that solidifies more, and these big games near the end of the year start to play out. And I think it'll be an interesting landscape. There's definitely a scenario where, there could potentially be two Big Ten teams in there, depending on how things play out. We will have to see.
Yes, we will. That's why they play the game.
That's right. So if you enjoyed listening to this podcast out there, you can find us online if you search for College Football Throwdown. We're on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, as well as Podomatic.com. You can leave us reviews, ratings, leave us a comment. and we'll read it out on the show. We always love hearing back feedback from the fans. So thank you all out there for listening to this podcast. Thank you, Dad, for joining me as always. And until next week, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.